when we talk about recession expectations, they were very elevated just a few months ago, really just a few weeks ago. They have started to come down a lit. They're still elevated. If you see that trend line of expectations coming down, is there data to back up that shift in sentiment?
Yeah, so there certainly is the case here to be made that both in Europe we have a little bit more tailwind because the winter has been milder. There's a lot of structural headwinds to Europe, but at least cyclically, Europe looks a little bit better. China reopening is probably the main story that's driving higher growth globally. Most importantly, China reopening is of course going to help those countries that export to China, including Europe, but it will also be helpful for US growth. So global growth and therefore the recession outlook, we can talk about inflation in a minute, but the recession outlook, it does look like the probability of a global recession across the board is at least lower than what it was a few months ago.
But does a lack of recession or avoiding recession, does that necessarily mean growth or significant growth? Because some of the expectations I've seen for GDP are still below 1%.
Absolutely. If you type ECFC go on your Bloomberg screen and look at the US, you will exactly see that expectations to growth in the US in 2023 is still just above zero. And it's been very, very low for quite some time. So we are still skating just above the zero line, and therefore it is still an open question whether we'll have a recession or not. The data has still been good when it comes to the labor market, jobless claims. More recently, ISM services, industrial production has been a bit weaker. Retail sales last week was also a bit weaker. So some of the more recent indicators do suggest also some of the weekly indicators on bankruptcy filings. BCY in Bloomberg has also been deteriorating. So the conclusion is some of the latest few weeks, exactly as you're pointing out, Romain, here, have been weakening a little bit. But broadly speaking, the biggest tailwind really here is that China reopening is likely, at least over the next several quarters, to provide quite a boost to growth globally.